As if you could outrun me. As if you could fight me off. I'm designed to kill. Hi, it's Editing Mark on my new webcam. You might notice the quality of the microphone is not the best. It's an okay microphone, it's a bit old, but when it's against my shirt it sounds terrible. When it's in my hand it's pretty good. So just, you're gonna have to put up with it. I tried to edit it so it sounds a bit better. I've already listened to a bit that I've edited, and trust me, what you've got is a lot better than what it started as. So I've done my best, but thank you for putting up with it. I really appreciate it. And just enjoy the rest of the video, if you can.
You could probably guess what I'm going to talk about today, and that's Twilight. So I've made some notes, I've made a brew, I brought myself some biscuits. So let's just get this started. Let's just start off with kind of why I love Twilight. It is very much a product of its time, like the early 2000s, pre-2010 sort of thing. Sorry, there's a dog running around. I love dogs. If I come across as a bit stuffy, by the way, it is freezing out here, but I wanted to sit on my coat, and I've not got vampire immunity like Edward. Well, the first thing that catches your eye with Twilight is definitely the aesthetics. Twilight aesthetics are something else. You got the pine trees, evergreen, you got the blue of forks, like it's always about to have sunset. Just a bit of sprinkling of sun through the clouds. It's very interesting to look at, and it's very iconic. You can basically recognise Twilight just by putting blue over a scene of anything, and you'll go, oh, it's Hoa Hoa film, To be fair, I'm in the most Hoa Hoa region of where I live as possible. Just in the middle of the woods, to be honest. I think the Twilight films, so I've only seen the Twilight films really. I've started reading the first book after having read Life and Death, the gender swap version, which I enjoyed it a lot, but I've got some critiques on that I'll get to later. But I've seen all the films to death. I can't stop watching them. Like every couple months, maybe I'll just sit and watch them all. They're not even amazing in the sense of writing, but they're definitely great when it comes to cinematography. And even though obviously a lot of the cast in interviews seemed like they'd given up on the film, they actually did quite a good job at acting with the script that they had. I've actually got to give props to Robert Pattinson as well, because Robert Pattinson actually, despite not liking the books or the films and making fun of them, he actually still did it. And I know you're getting paid a lot, but he still put the effort in. But let's just think. I'll just talk about Life and Death, because I've actually read through that and I have some notes based of what I know of the films and everything. Anyway, in Life and Death is basically just the same as the first book for most of it. I'd say a good 90% of the book. I will say if you're a really big fan of Twilight like I am, the ending is kind of worth it, because you learn a lot of different vampire lore and history, and it's kind of very different to what you see in the rest of the Twilight series at the end of that book. And I do wish Stephanie Meyer would carry on that series. It would be great if she did. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm kind of dressed like Edward with the blue jeans and grey shirt. Yeah, I did it on purpose, obviously. But yeah, I think the biggest problem with Life and Death is how similar it is to the original book, because the character who is now called Beau from Bella, both mean beautiful, doesn't change enough. And I think Stephanie Meyer really struggles to write from the perspective of a man. She writes Edward rather well as her perspective of a man, but not from the perspective of a man. For example, when all the girls are phoning over Beau at school, most guys would either get cocky or they would, be really keen on all these girls liking them, even if they weren't going to go for any of them. They'd be a bit more enjoying of it, and that's not just me. I think that's just a common guy thing. And I'm not saying that, Beau had to be cocky, although that would be a good character flaw for him to get over. But even if he was just a lot more out of the loop, like he had no clue, and people weren't just coming up to him all the time saying oh, will you go to the dance? I think it would be more interesting if he actually had no clue about all these people supposedly liking him. Maybe they don't even like him, maybe they just want him because Edith wants him. But I also thought that Stephanie Meyer really missed out on the opportunity to write more about the human side. I think there could be more of a three-way love spectrum thing with it. I think there could have been more of a dynamic love dilemma rather than a love triangle. I think if they'd made a female human more interesting than both Jules, which is Jacob's equivalent, and Edith, which is Edward's equivalent, that could also be really great. I don't really understand why they gender swapped all the human friends though, because I think they would have worked better as the original versions of the characters. For example, like Mike/Michaela would be a really interesting friend as a male to Beau, rather than having Jeremy. And I know that they're essentially the same character, but I think it was a pointless gender swap. One character who's actually too powerful to be gender swapped is actually Charlie Swan.
I know things. Like how to hunt somebody to the ends of the earth.
The man, the myth, the legend, Charlie Swan cannot be gender swapped. I'm getting these biscuits out now. I've been trying to fidget with them with one hand for ages. Let's not get into it. But anyway, the one character who didn't get gender swapped was Charlie Swan. He's just too powerful for Stephanie Meyer to control, even though he's actually a fictional character in her book. In reality, he's actually the most real character, and Stephanie Meyer is a figment of his imagination. He is just that strong. I think they could have really pushed up the father-son bond, because there is that kind of natural bond between a father and a son, even if they're quite distant, like a lot of people can be nowadays, distant from the fathers. You still do have like some ingrown bond with it that is very different to the kind of father-daughter relationship, where the daughter is more of a princess and more soft. Like the dad will look down at his son and smile because his son's tough, or his son just did a small thing, but it's a first step towards greater things. I think that could have definitely been developed a lot better. I also thought it was a bit weird that like Beau was so keen on doing stuff like, my dad's a rubbish cook, so I want to do all the cooking. Like, not saying that men can't cook, because some of the best chefs that I've eaten from are men, obviously. Just felt like it wasn't. I don't know, Beau should have been more into helping his dad around the house, maybe doing stuff that help him set up the internet and all that sort of stuff. That his dad could have been useless at, because I think a lot of guys can relate to that a lot more than cooking, as much as a lot of guys do like cooking. But yes, having Beau set up the internet, do all the tech stuff, that would be more interesting. And that could also be something that he shares with Edith, because even though Edith has literally lived throughout the advent of technology and all the changes that have come through the Industrial Revolution and all this sort of stuff, it would actually be quite interesting for her to kind of have no clue, because she's not that interested. It's very clear that the vampires in Life and Death kind of are only interested in technology that will benefit them being vampires, I guess, or just having fun. And they don't really seem interested in phones or anything like that. They'd rather go see each other, and I think that comes from obviously the characters being older, and that is like an older person thing to do, going seeing people and stuff. Like texting just isn't their thing, really. I think I'm just yapping about that. If we're just going to talk about the main characters, I think Beau is too much like Bella, and I think Edith and Jules were too much like their male counterparts. It's weird when Edith goes from shattering a tree and being like, "Oh, I'll piggyback you," to then curling up on Beau's chest like a cat. It's too much of a character break. It doesn't feel consistent. I definitely feel like Edith could be more into so many other ways to show her power and stuff, rather than just being strong and angry and carrying Beau around. I don't know. Jules is definitely just Jacob. Jules is literally just a dude bro as a woman. You don't really get the vibe that you could have anything to do with Beau and Jules. They could just be bros. And this is the thing as well. I was reading it, I was thinking, well, it's good that Edith has been changed, because everyone wants to see a female version of Edward. But it wasn't. It was literally just Edward as a female, not someone who's been through the same things but has a completely different experience of a woman. It would actually be more interesting if Jacob was still a dude, but then there was another female werewolf that would be interested in Beau. I feel like Beau would benefit from having a friend like Jacob, rather than having a romantic prospect like Jacob as a woman. I think it'd make a big difference. Yeah, I think if they'd kept the human characters the same, and maybe even added in a more romantic dynamic between Beau and a human female, and then having a different werewolf and keeping Jacob around, that would be very interesting. And then you would replace Edward with a completely different female version of Edward who's been through similar things but definitely reacts differently, who's definitely grown as a person. I think that would be a way more interesting dynamic. Anyway, I'm starting to freeze because I am not made out of porcelain. I don't have the skin of a killer. I have the skin of a very cold man. So I'll try and do part 2 at home. I love ginger nuts.